Hey folks, welcome to a Broken Meeple review, and look, yep, as promised, I'm back to the 28mm. It turns out the camera is actually a 28mm, not a 24. What does it matter? What's in 4mm? But somebody suggested I should try it on a kind of slanted thing, like put the thing in the corner and have it facing the sort of slant, and it's like, you know what, I quite like it. And the camera is even slightly closer to me because I can put it on a tabletop tripod and have it on the table as opposed to on a giant one on the other side of the table and, do it that way. So the only downside is I hope that microphone is going to pick up my voice well enough, but we'll see. That's what post-production's for. So without further ado, let's get on with the review, and that is Pandemic Rapid Response. Now, I must admit, I roll my eyes every time I see the word pandemic put on anything, because it's just like, oh, another game that's stealing the pandemic name. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter in this case, because in Pandemic Rapid Response, you are essentially on a big sort of aircraft, and you're trying to drop supplies onto the cities that need the medical supplies. But the way you do it is pretty much like what you do in a game called Fuse. You roll a ton of dice against a timer, and what you do is that your pawn is in certain rooms. You can spend dice to move it around the plane, but each room has a requirement of what dice symbol is required and how many of that type of dice in order to generate these cube supplies into your cargo bay. When you do that, you're able to fly your plane around the side of the board and basically drop the supplies into, effectively, the city it needs to be. So whereas Fuse basically has you rolling the dice and matching the dice onto the symbols, Pandemic Rapid Response basically just says, well, you roll the dice, generate the cubes, and then go to the other place. So it's kind of like that. But with this one, there's also another aspect of losing where you end up generating waste as you put up these supplies. And of course, if you generate too much waste, you automatically lose. I mean, I'm not sure what kind of waste it is, whether it's hazardous materials or something, whether the plane just explodes, I'm not quite sure thematically how that's supposed to work. But of course, you have to manage the waste as well, so occasionally you have to pop to the recycler and just, drain it out a little bit. But that's essentially the game. You are playing this for no more than, say, 15 to 20 minutes, and you're constantly against this 2-minute sand timer. Well, I say 2 minutes, we'll get onto that a bit later. But from that, you go through as far as you can. As soon as the timer runs out, you pause, take off one of your tokens, flip it over, keep going, and as you complete city cards, you get more tokens, and the idea is you just have to basically keep going and going and going until you've completed all the city cards based on the level of difficulty. Of course, if you either generate too much waste, or if you run out of those tokens, then game over, you lose. It's a pretty straightforward co-op game at the end of the day. Now, the pandemic thing, don't be fooled by this. I mean, I was like, oh my god, another pandemic, seriously. This is very loosely tied to pandemic. I mean, that whole thing about, it generates epidemics and you got to not let something get to 3 or more, otherwise it explodes and outbreaks and that. None of that happens in this. I mean, literally, the only reason this has got pandemic on the box is to sell more copies. I'm positive on this. Yeah, you're dropping medical supplies onto various cities, but you're dropping band-aids and medicines and power and water and various other bits. So you're not doing entirely what you normally do in Pandemic anyway. But that's literally it. That is the tie-in to Pandemic. It is not even designed by Matt Leacock. It's designed by Kane Klenko. So, the whole reason that name is on there is just because Z-Man wants to sell more copies, pretty much. You could have stapled any theme on here. In fact, you could have just left out Pandemic entirely and just had it as dropping medical supplies onto a city, and it would have worked just as well. But of course, stick the word pandemic on it, and you know what happens on that one. But is the game fun? Sort of. It's okay. I mean, if you like Fuse, and to a lesser extent Flatline, you'll like this. They're pretty much well, actually no, Flatline's a little bit different, but Fuse and this feel very similar. Fuse, roll the dice, get them onto the cards in a certain way. You might lose dice every now and again, but basically it's roll dice, get them onto the symbols, drop the card. Here, roll dice, generate the cubes, put the cubes on the card, drop the card. It's just basically one extra step. Both of them are timed, both of them are quick, both of them are co-op. So they are very, very similar, even though there are some subtle differences. In terms of production, this is actually well produced. The artwork is kind of standard for Z-Man, but you do have a decent sized board. You've got plastic pieces for the tokens and the little model for the plane. Basic looking pawns like you've been used to. The cards are nice. The timer is the weak link, unfortunately, because the timer is meant to be 2 minutes. I want you to go, if you bought this game, I want you to time how long that sand timer runs, because why we're still using sand timers, I don't know. They're antiquated and never accurate. So it's meant to be 2 minutes, and it says about 2 minutes. I timed mine. On one side, it was 2 minutes 14. Okay, fair enough, it gives us 14 seconds. You can't be hyperactive with a sand timer. When I flipped it over, it took 3 minutes 14. What? So something was wrong with my sand timer. For some reason, it ran slower one way than it did the other. So it gave us like an entire minute and a quarter. And I'm like, I can swear we've got a lot of time this round. And oh, that's why. We're basically being given an extra minute. So frankly, you might as well just chuck the sand timer in the bin and do what everybody else in the known world does and use your smartphone. Your smartphone has a timer on it. Your watch probably has a timer on it. Just use that. Just time it for 2 minutes and you're set. You know, this game could have happily just said, doesn't come with a sand timer, use your phone. And I'm pretty sure everybody in the world has a phone or some means of telling the time, so it can't be all bad. But that's a small nitpick, it's a small gripe, you know, but just to sort of give you that warning that you really might want to use your smartphone if you want to have the most balanced game. You can of course change the difficulty for some added replay value if you find it too easy, and certainly easy mode, the introductory mode, you will beat it first time without even breaking a sweat, and you'll definitely want to up the difficulty from there, maybe even add a few crisis cards that basically throw a spanner in the works as you go along. But the replay value is not going to be too great here. I mean, you basically just have different cards with different requirements on it, not that much in variety. And the game is the same every time. You know, you roll the dice against the timer, go to the rooms, generate cubes, drop them, generate cubes, drop them, oh, clear a bit of waste, generate cubes, drop them, generate a bit more waste, oh, clean some waste, clean some waste. It's nothing really chops and changes. The game doesn't have that much of a variable setup apart from just some slightly different crisis cards, and some of them aren't even that impactful. There are a couple that at the wrong time could really hose you down, but for the most part the crisis cards are just more of a nuisance than they are like a massive hindrance. If anything, the main problem that you will face is usually just the dice themselves, because the rooms have got different requirements. You know, 3 dice in order to get 1 cube, and then another 2 dice at the same time to get another cube, and then maybe 1 to get the 3rd cube. But you rapidly get into a few situations where you know which card you want to get to, you've already flown there, you've already had some spare airplane symbols to do it, and then you have 2 people basically in that room going, lightning, 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 you know, just constantly trying to get the minimum requirement for the thing. And with some rooms you only need 1, maybe 2 dice, it's not too difficult, but the rooms where you need 3 as your first bare minimum placement, they're annoying, because especially in a 2-player game or even solo, you could just literally control 2 characters by yourself and it's pretty straightforward. Mildly stressful, not quite XCOM level though. XCOM's definitely a lot more stressful in that regard. But even if you're controlling 2 yourself, you rapidly go. It's like, right, 2 of us have met in the same room, we need the lightning, it's the last thing we need. Right, no, 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 right, you, no, 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 right, you, no, 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 and it's just the constant back and forth of the dice hosing you down. It's not necessarily that you made the wrong strategy, it's just the dice hate you, and that's the way it's kind of going, again, like Confuse. So, you know, all in all, the biggest problem I have with this is not just that it just feels like a Fuse ripoff and that it's using the Pandemic name, but I just get the feeling that this is going to be forgotten pretty quickly. You know, think about it. Pandemic dice games. How many are you aware of? Hopefully some of you have at least said 1 game. In fact, I'm probably aware there's only 1 Pandemic dice game. And what one's that? Can you remember its name? Pandemic the Cure. Have you played this? Have you seen it in the shop anywhere? In a game cafe? Pandemic the Cure came out, was an okay little sort of filler dice game of Pandemic. I've not even heard of it for the last 2.5 years or whatever. It's just come and gone. I'm not sure you can find copies of it anymore. I think it's out of print and it's never been brought back into print. It's just done. That one was pretty forgettable as well. You know, you don't hear people raving about the dice game compared to all the other Pandemics. And this, I feel, is just going to be another one of those things. You know, if you've already got Fuse, there's no reason really to get this. If you haven't got Fuse or Fat Line, you're then going to decide, do I want this? You know, is this the sort of game I want? Certainly the theme, what there is on here, is going to appeal to more people, I suppose, than the Fuse one. But again, you've got a lot of different choices to make with this. And I just don't see this going the distance. You know, you're going to be forking out for this game, and you'll get a bit of enjoyment every now and again. Certainly in a game cafe it could work, but then you'll basically, I suppose, just put it to the side and move on to something else. I can't see it having the legs to go the distance. Just because you put Pandemic on it does not make it a fantastic game. As I say, it's okay. I don't think it's bad, and I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. You know, apart from the sand timer, which is a minor gripe. It's just that there's one thing to not have anything wrong with the game. It's a whole other thing to not really be outstanding enough to stick around. It's average. It's an average game. I'll play it, but honestly, if I was to put it on the floor right now and it just blotted out of my mindset, I would not lose a wink of sleep at night. It's just there. It kind of exists. So, like I say, you want a co-op panic sort of ridden dice game, then give this one a look. You know, it's there alongside Fuse and Flatline and similar others. It might be what you're looking for. For me, I played it. I'm kind of done. It's not something I'm going to hang on to myself. For me, yeah, I mean, I can give it a 6. 6 is fine. It's an okay game. I'll play it if somebody wants to play it, but frankly, 6 isn't good enough in this day and age to really go the distance. And for some people, I think they're just going to find it maybe a little bit too repetitive at times, and maybe after about 5 or 6 plays, they'll be like, yeah, kind of done, really. You know, I don't see how you would expand this unless you added some brand new mechanics, and frankly, I don't see this one getting expanded in the long run anyway. So, Pandemic, rapid response, 6 for me. So that's it. Hope you like this kind of format with the slanty view. You know, let me know your thoughts. Was it good for you? And if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please click the subscribe button and get those subscriber limits up. You know, it will mean so much to me. So that's it. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple review. And whether you're, you know, choking to death in one city because I'm a little bit too slow with my plane, can't help it. You know, I'm a one-man band here, and it's still only a game. Take care, and I'll see you next time.